I did try to Google about gambling addiction, but it was just mostly about people that have remortgaged their homes or spent hundreds of thousands on gambling. And I just thought, well, I don't do that, so I can't be a gambling addict. I didn't see anyone that looked like me.
What about your identity as a Black woman? How did that shape the recovery process for you?
I go to meetings at least twice a day. I've noticed there isn't Black women, there's no brown women. So it got me thinking into like, I can't be the only Black girl that's got a gambling addiction and a cocaine addiction. I can't be the only Black girl that has felt the way I felt. My worry is like, how many Black girls are going to die like this? People like to say that you can't die from gambling, but you can.
Welcome to New Beginnings, a podcast exploring the hidden impact of gambling harms on women's lives. I'm Natasha Devon, an author, broadcaster and campaigner, and together we'll hear from those directly affected by gambling harms, shedding light on the challenges faced in recovery, but most importantly, we will be hearing stories of hope. To find out more, visit betnomoreuk.org or contact the free National Gambling Helpline on 0808 8020 133 for 24/7 support. In today's episode, we will be exploring the challenges of finding representation in recovery spaces as a woman of colour and the transformative power of self-care. This recording was made after the interview took place. As always, I was joined by Lisa Walker, New Beginnings lead facilitator and expert by experience. So let's get into the interview. Today, I'm joined by Kiki, a 38-year-old mother and advocate from London. Kiki's story of a fierce determination to break the cycle of trauma. Despite facing gambling and cocaine addiction, Kiki has not only rebuilt her life, but is now dedicated to empowering others. Kiki, welcome to New Beginnings.
Thank you. Hello.
Hi. Thank you for being here today. So first of all, there's a friend of mine who is a habit change coach, and she always says that the things that we're addicted to always begin as things that we need. Mm-hmm. But at what point did you realise that the gambling was doing more harm than good?
I think that point came last year. Well, on and off for the last 5 years, I knew I had a gambling problem. I put GamStop and things like that. I banned me and many of my friends whose names I was using. And I think, and then I started to play free games, and I thought that would be enough, but it wasn't. But it really came to a head last year. But I did try to Google about gambling addiction. But it was just mostly about people that have remortgaged their homes or spent hundreds of thousands on gambling. And I just thought, well, I don't do that, so I can't be a gambling addict. I didn't see anyone that looked like me or anything that sounded like me as a gambling addict. I thought I was just being dramatic. It's something I've been told since I was a child. So I just thought I was just being dramatic to try and say I had an addiction. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, that makes total sense. Lisa, can you tell us what GamStop is?
Yeah, so GamStop is an app that you can put on your phone. So you just download it, you sign up to GamStop, you register, and then you can block yourself for up to, I think it's 5 years, at a time. And this can go on multiple devices. So not just your phones, you can laptops and other people's devices in the household. And once you've signed up to GamStop, it sort of keeps you sort of from accessing online sort of, slots and all what else goes with it. So it's a really good app.
It sounds great. And what about reflecting on what we've just heard from Kiki about a habit that begins for an understandable reason of just wanting some distraction because you've got a lot going on, and then spirals and spirals. At what point do you think that it's something that we should be recognizing as toxic or something that is harming us in some way?
Yeah, I think nobody ever wakes up and thinks, oh, do you know what? Today I'm going to become a gambling addict and, or a drug addict. I think it gradually, you get into that habit where it's something you have to do. Some people have to do it every day. Some people can do it weekly. But then when I suppose it starts to get toxic is when that all you can think about is either, you know, the gambling or the taking the drugs. When relationships are breaking down, when perhaps you're not performing at work like you should be, perhaps you're not present in the room when you're just thinking about other things. That's when it starts to become toxic, when you're just focusing on that addiction, and that has to come first. I think that's when people sort of think to themselves, right, I need to do something about this.
When it starts to
When
eat
it
into
starts to eat,
other
when it
areas
starts,
of your life.
when it starts to eat in,
And so, Kiki, you were talking about not really seeing any stories that represented you and the situation you were in. So what was it that actually made you reach out for help?
Last Christmas, I'd messed up pretty badly, and I really hurt someone because of my actions, and I just had enough. Like, I really just had enough. I just had enough of being so depressed, so suicidal, and so alone. I'd completely isolated myself. No one really knew to the extent that it got to. No one knew that, because I would never let anyone know my business like that. Reaching out for help isn't really something that I was taught to do. But then I just Googled something to do with gambling. I can't remember what it was. I searched, but GamCare came up. And then I rang that number. I spoke to somebody who was absolutely amazing. We spoke for a long time, and then we started to speak every single day. When that happened, a girl from my school, she could get trauma therapy, EFT therapy through her company, and she offered me that for trauma therapy, tapping therapy. So I started doing that as well, which was absolutely like a miracle that had happened. So I started doing that, and then with Game Care, I got therapy through them too. And then after a few weeks of that, they offered me to talk to other people. I can't remember what it was called, what they passed me on to, but that's the people that got me into rehab.
So you say that you learned from a really young age to put on a mask and not let anybody know what was going on with you. Did anybody in your life guess that maybe you had an addiction to something where they might not have known that it was gambling?
I think everybody knew I had an addiction to drugs.
Okay.
100%. I think everyone knows I liked to party. I used to go out raving and stuff. But it was a fluctuated addiction. Do you know what I mean? Like, there was times in my life when I still got on it and stuff, but I was living like a normal-ish life. I still went to work and stuff. But then there's other years where my life was disaster. It just depends on what was happening in my life at the time, to what I needed to use to cope or to not.
And so you were able to access trauma therapy alongside the specific gambling counselling that you were getting. What kinds of things did you learn in terms of tools to help you navigate the recovery process?
Reaching out, setting limits to myself, being honest. I'd never, up until I spoke to that the man at GamCare, I'd never been honest with anybody in my entire life about my addiction problems, like, ever. But I didn't have anything else to lose at that point. Do you know what I mean? So I didn't have nothing to lose but be honest. My daughter was of an age where I didn't have to worry about social services to a certain point, so I could be honest, and I knew I was at a place in my life where I could get help, because I would never have, in the past, I would never have left my daughter to go to rehab, do you know what I mean, or do anything like that, but I could do that at that point. So I just thought I had nothing to lose. I just wanted to get better.
Lisa, do you think that that's what stops a lot of women speaking about their gambling addictions? They're worried about the knock-on impact on their kids?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, definitely. There's so many people. I mean, going back to what Kiki said about the mask, I think that's so important that spoke about, because, like Kiki said, everyone knew about the drugs, but nobody knew about the gambling, because it is the hidden addiction. Everyone can see when someone's intoxicated, high on drugs, but nobody can see the gambling addiction. And I guess if you're a woman experiencing gambling harms and you have got children that perhaps are younger, that fear, like myself when I ended up homeless with my two children when they were 10 and 11, that they were going to get taken off me, that I think any woman, even if they haven't got children, the fear of what are people going to think of me? The stigma around a gambling addiction, because most people think it's men that gamble, and unfortunately we know that there's just as many women gambling, isn't there?
And it's normal for women to go to bingo and have scratch cards, and it's not, even now, people don't see it as a real addiction.
No.
I mean, I've got cross addiction, so I'm in CA, and even now it's not, people don't look at it as serious as what a drug or an alcohol addiction is.
So do you think the fact that people don't acknowledge gambling addiction as a real thing actually contributes to the stigma around it?
100%.
Definitely. Yeah.
And so you've opened up to this person at GamCare who presumably you've never met before, you don't know who they are. Did being able to open up to them allow you to tell other people in your life?
Everyone knew I gambled. It's not like I lied. I didn't lie. I don't think people knew to the extent or how dark it was, really. I knew that my friends, they'd be like, "Oh, don't spend any money about it," but I never cared about how much money I was spending. And I got the gift of the gab. I'm good at making it an excuse when I was in heavy addiction, you know. And I'm good at, like I say, putting masks on, so people would never know unless I spoke. But because I was doing the trauma therapy and then had gambling therapy, it just kind of freed space up in my mind. I don't think I really spoke to my mates about it. They knew I was doing therapy, but I don't think anyone really knew about it until I knew I was going to rehab, and that's when everyone was like, "What?" And then I was like, because I think everyone thought I'd end up in rehab,
right?
But they didn't think it would be because of I mean, I didn't think it would be because of gambling, but gambling destroyed my life more and quicker than any drug has ever done to me.
Wow, that's so interesting. And what about your identity as a Black woman? How did that shape the recovery process for you?
Well, because it's just, I wasn't raised to talk. It's private business. You don't, what goes on indoors stays indoors kind of mentality. But then I speak about a lot of things that are supposed to stay indoors publicly, and I have. So I think I'm always judged in that respect because I talk too much, I guess. But for me, from what I've gone through, and I truly believe talking about things heals people. I know it does. It's healed me, and I believe that I know there's a lot of people that are going through stuff, but they would never talk about it because of what their families would think, or how they would be judged. I'm at a point I don't care, but I know that a lot of people do care. And the reason why I started to get so passionate about this side, especially in gambling, is because in all the rooms I've been to, I go to meetings at least twice a day. I have done for 7 months. So for me, I've noticed there isn't Black women, there's no brown women, and there's hardly any. There's still like the odd one that pops up, and it's kind of shocking. If I'm on a saying, "Well, it's a blackbird," do you know what I mean? It's just like, you know what I mean? Because it shouldn't be that much of a shock. And so it got me thinking into well, I can't be the only Black girl that's got a gambling addiction and a cocaine addiction. I can't be the only Black girl that has felt the way I felt. So what's happening to all those other Black girls? And my worry is how many Black girls are going to commit suicide or just die like this? Because, and people like to say that gambling isn't, you can't die from gambling, but you can.
Yeah.
You can kill yourself. And it's not a joke. It's just as serious as a drink or a drug. And that's just really the whole point of why I want to do this kind of stuff, because I need people to understand that it is just as serious as a drink or a drug, and it can kill you just as much as a drink or a drug. And it's a very quick process to go from enjoyment to darkness in this addiction.
Can I just? I was just going to say, listening to Kiki, about being a Black lady with a gambling addiction and why they don't come forward. I've spoken to a lot of people about this, and I think religion, the different cultures. I mean, I've heard stories of which I only heard a couple of weeks ago about that bookmakers have a back entrance for people like Asian communities, so they're not actually, or Chinese communities, so they're not actually seen walking through that front door, and they've actually got a back entrance, so it's that hidden. And I guess what you said, that shame around the shame we're going to bring on our family, or the shame that we're going to, because of our religion, our culture, our beliefs. And so for you to be able to come onto this podcast and speak about this is going to be, it's going to be so empowering for women to come forward. And I guess the other thing, what you said about the gambling addiction is just as bad as drink and drugs. When we think about people that, have got addictions to drink and drugs, there's only so much alcohol and so much drugs that someone can consume before they'll either pass out or they'll kill themselves. With gambling, if you've got a pot of money that is endless, or you can get your hands on money, you can just keep going. Yeah. And I think this is where the gambling addiction really does. And that is why you see so many people getting into trouble, because they start taking out all sorts of payday loans, credit cards, remortgaging their houses before you've lost it, homeless, on the streets, bankrupt like I was, and in that deep, deep, dark place.
But that's another thing that I really want to talk about. Is like, I've never had that much money, and so my gambling wasn't that much money. I'm not in hundreds of pounds worth of debt or anything like that. But it was just beyond my means of what I had.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Last year I lived off 1 meal a day. Do you know what I mean? The bare minimum of gas and electric, didn't ever buy anything new for myself, didn't go anywhere, didn't do anything outside of it. Do you know what I mean? So I want people to understand that it's not just big money. They need to know that if you're dipping into your shopping money to have a gamble and you've only got 50 quid shopping money, you've got a problem.
It's interesting though that you say that this is more powerful or more harmful as an addiction than drugs, and that it had such a profound impact on your life, even though you didn't get into thousands and thousands of pounds worth of debt. And you talk about this darkness. Talk to me about that more. Is it the habit itself that feeds something psychological?
For me, it just took my soul. It made me into a different person. I've been getting on it, going out, drinking since I was 17 years old. Gambling made me steal, made me sell my stuff, made me go without. It made me sneaky. It made me a liar. It made me all these things that I'm not, and it just took my soul. It's the only way I know how to describe it, because I weren't me. I turned horrible, really, really nasty, and I did some really hurtful things to people that I really care about. Because all I cared about was gambling, because I couldn't think, and I had a lot going on, and it was the only time I couldn't think of that situation. So for me, I just had to gamble. I was doing therapy, and as soon as I finished therapy, I had to have money for gambling and then money for drugs, so that I knew that as soon as the therapy session finished, I could just do that, and then I didn't have to think about it. And that was just how I could cope at that time.
Yeah, I mean, the way that you articulate it makes sense, even though it is such a harmful thing. It also kind of makes logical sense, the way that you are describing it. What about self-care? So you've talked about how self-care has been a tool that you've used in recovery. What do you mean when you use those words, self-care?
Self-care, well, first of all, I think how you start your day is super important. I think routine and structure is pivotal to what you do in recovery. I have 3 non-negotiables. Well, I started off with 3 non-negotiables. I don't even know how many anymore, that I do every day. But when I first came out of rehab, I had to go to a meeting every single day. I had to meditate every day, and I had to leave my house for at least 15 minutes a day for a walk. I do way more than that now. It will grow. But I think having 3 things that you have to do every day, no matter what, is super important. And that doesn't matter if I'm ill, if I'm heartbroken, whatever it is, I've got to do it. Do you know what I mean? I've sat and I do manifestations and affirmations every single day as well. And there's been times when I've been crying my eyes out, but I'm still saying these happy affirmations and stuff, because it's about retraining your brain. It's about how you talk to yourself, how you love yourself is so important. When I first got out of rehab, I started taking myself out. I've climbed the O2. I've done loads of little different things by myself. Take myself out on dates. I go get my hair and makeup done. Take myself out for something to eat. I nice bubble bath with candles in it. Even a day in bed. make fresh bedding, have a nice bath, fresh pyjamas, put your favourite TV show on, have a little takeaway, little munch. That's self-care. These little things really do help.
So it's like treating yourself in the way that you would your best friend,
Yeah,
essentially.
100%, just loving yourself. Like, you don't need... You can't control people, places, or things. All you can do is control yourself, right? Yeah. So you start your day off with meditation, affirmations, creating the life that you want, creating the life of your dreams, self-belief. Like, it takes a lot of work. I've been doing meditation for a really long time, even in addiction. But coming out of it, now I've got more structure and more routine, finding things that make you laugh, finding things that give you joy, like trying all different things till you work out what it is that you truly love, and then believing in yourself enough to go for it.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. What you've just said, it's such a kind of counter to all those people who mock the idea of self-care, and they think it's just, people who are lazy and want to have a bath. But, sometimes you really do need to have that bath. I want to go back to when you were first starting to research what might be available to help you, when you first realised that gambling was harming you. What difference would it have made for you to see somebody who looked like you when you'd done that?
A massive difference. A massive difference. I wish that, all them years ago, I think it was 2016, I'd had a miscarriage, and that's when my gambling had its first spurt of getting out of control. And that's when I put the gam stop on and that. But I wish that there was more stories available online about people who had an addiction and they only spent £100 out of their shopping bill money, or they took 30 quid out of their 40 quid shopping money to gamble, because that's a problem as well. It's just as much as a problem. It doesn't matter what the bet costs. It's the fact that you're going with that so you can gamble is the problem.
Yeah.
It's about the fact that you can't sit in your own feelings, so you're using something to fill that void. It's the problem. And I wish I just had more women that look like me to talk about things like that, especially mums too.
I mean, this must have been part of the reason that you thought up this whole idea, Lisa, that we do think of, when we think of somebody who is harming themselves with gambling and harming the people around them with gambling, we think of a man. And we probably think of a white man as well. So, talk to me a little bit about what inspired you to create New Beginnings.
Well, I guess, walking into a GA room with 35 men and one other woman and just thinking, where are all the women? I cannot just be the only person that's got a gambling addiction. I can't be the only person that's got children. One of my children's got special needs, who needs 24/7 care. Certain things I couldn't talk about in a room full of men. I didn't want to disclose. And also just thinking, when I was sort of writing about New Beginnings, thinking, wouldn't it be great if we could get some kind of advert on the TV after a gambling advert that's got a bit like Michael Jackson when he done one of his videos with different people's faces. So you've got black,
black
Chinese,
or white, yeah,
from every different community that could be on this advert for 30 seconds and to say gambling doesn't discriminate and it affects all walks of life. And on that advert, so just so people like Kiki, people from I went to Peterborough once and done a talk with the Chinese community, and again people coming up to me saying, they don't want to come out and speak because of their, the fear of it, and Asian women that I speak to, again, just, why in 2024 is this still going on? Why are we not having more adverts about gambling harms on the TV? Why are we not, showing that this can affect anybody? Yeah. It needs to be out. It needs to be out there, and it needs to be more women. I mean, when you think about, football celebrities like Paul Merson, who's got his own addiction with gambling, and he comes out, he's high profile, he's a footballer, he's well known. But when you think about, there isn't anybody really that's come out as a woman who's quite high profile about gambling. There's nobody.
It's a really good point.
There's
Yeah, there is, and I
nobody.
can't
I mean,
think
if
of
I
any.
went on the telly, which I would gladly do, people are going to, who's Lisa Walker?
Yeah, they're
You know, oh yeah, she's just a girl from Essex. And I'm not high profile enough.
Well, get yourself
But-
there.
Yeah, but we need to change. With this, it needs to change, and this is where it's all going to start.
And Kiki, what's your relationship like with your heritage now?
I'm just me. You know what? I get told a lot. I'm not like a proper black girl.
Do you?
I get told that all the time. I've been told that my whole life. And I'm like, well, I don't know what your definition of a proper black girl is, but I'm definitely black and I'm a girl. So this is just who I am. I think just be who you are. You don't have to fit a stereotype. Stereotypes are BS anyway. So just stick to your own, who you are. Be you. I'm me. I'm proud to be me. Very, very proud to be me. I've not got one shame about me. I'm very proud to be who I am. Very proud to be an addict in recovery. All I want to do is help people and be good and live a good life. So, yeah, just be you. That's all I say. It doesn't matter about race to me.
I love that. I think that's a really good place to finish this conversation. Thank you so much. That's all for this episode of New Beginnings. Thank you for joining us today. Kiki, your story is so inspiring, and thank you for sharing it with us. And thank you to Lisa Walker.
Thank you, Natasha.
If you've been affected by any of the topics covered in today's episode, please contact the National Gambling Helpline on 0808 8020 133 for 24/7 support, or you can visit betnomoreuk.org to learn more about the New Beginnings service. If you found today's episode helpful, please feel free to like, comment and share. You can find the New Beginnings podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. To watch all of our episodes, subscribe to our YouTube channel, Bet No More UK. I'm Natasha Devon. Thank you for coming along on this exploration with me as we uncover the complexities of gambling and its far-reaching effects. Thank you.